Hi, I'm Brett Godfrey, and this is ViewPoint. This week, we are so thrilled to have one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life as a guest on our show, the Reverend Leon Kelly. Sometimes people just call him the Rev. He allows me to call him the Rev. So I've got him as a guest on our show today, and this is going to be really, really interesting. It's a new slant on the kind of stuff we've been talking about on our show from the beginning. Leon, it's so great to have you on the show, and good morning.
Well, again, it is a good morning, Brad, coming all the way out here, man. I tell you what, if I didn't have GPS, I wouldn't be sitting here. It took me a week to find where you are here,
Yeah, we're for those of you who don't know what he's talking about, we're on the southern edge of the metropolitan Denver area. And if you're used to being downtown, it's quite a journey to get back down to this part of town.
And this is one of those places that I could not say that I just happened to be out in the neighborhood.
Yeah, that's true.
So I thought I'd stop by.
That's true.
No. There's one of those places.
Your digs are more downtown. Is that fair to
Well,
say?
downtown, over in the hood. Now, I may say or use certain language that some people say, ooh, what did that mean? What did he say? And all of that.
I'm going to stop you now and then.
Make some clarities to it.
Yeah. So when you say the hood, what are you referring to there?
Well, I grew up over on the east side of Denver.
Yeah.
The 5 Points area, Swansea, Park Hill. I'm all over in that side of the area.
And what I'd like to do is start with what you're up to these days, and then maybe get you to tell your story to our listeners and viewers, because it's a stunningly interesting story, and it's very inspirational and very uplifting. So I'd like to be able to have you share that a little bit today.
Good.
First of all, let me ask you this. How old are you, Rev?
How old am I? Man, and when I talk about, I was just making this statement earlier saying that time stops for no one. And, when you think as to what you used to be able to do physically, because I played a lot of ball.
And what kind of ball did you play?
I started off playing football, and then switched over to one of the kids hit me from Nebraska. And this was a little linebacker. I was a wide receiver, and, man, we needed 4 yards. I did a 5-yard slant. This little fella came up and hit me so hard, Brent, man, that I held onto the ball, made the first down, but I looked up to this fella stood on me. He didn't even have a neck, so my things with the Cornhuskers have been. So that made me think that there had to be an easier way to compete. And I switched over to playing basketball.
All right.
So that's been my love.
How tall are you, Rev?
Oh, man, I'm just 6'5". Just 6'5".
Just 6'5".
6'5". Matter of fact, this is my exact physique when I graduated from high school in 71. 6'5", 215, wide receiver. This is my exact. I blew all the way up to 265.
Now, when you were playing ball, was that professionally?
Well, no, I played at college, AAU ball at the college level. Then we got out and we played semi-pro, and
Got it.
It was something that I enjoyed doing. It was sort of like a love of life, and sometimes, you come from the hood, and I was a program director of this rec center, Red Chill, over in the hood, and anybody who felt like they had any handles, they played at my center, So it was a love that I had, one of the many loves.
Now, where did you grow? Well, before we go back into your past,
I'm 60, almost 70 years of age, almost 70.
A young 70.
Yeah.
Because you're very fit and agile. So, what is it you do these days?
For those who've been around in the Denver, Colorado area for over these decades, this is my 39th year running this anti-gang program. We started it when we were first introduced to gangs coming to Colorado, about 84. So for almost 4 decades, been dealing with that. But over the last number of years, I've been trying to wean off because
Trying to retire?
They did a story for me, a couple of years ago, saying that, Reverend Kelly said he's going to retire. I just say I would like to retire. I was trying to retire. I'm trying to wean off, what I've been doing for these decades. It is something that I felt that God allowed me to go through the things in my life to prepare me for the work that I've been doing for these last 40 years.
And you have a variety of outreach programs, if I understand that. Am I saying that right?
Well, and again, keep in mind when we started this almost 4 decades ago, there was a litany of things that we found ourselves doing, are trying to do to let those kids or people that needed our support feel a part of. We've been running an after-school program for years. And it's something, man, we start talking about time. Some of those kids that was in our after-school program back in the 80s and 90s, they're grown and they got kids now. And some of the kids that I've dealt with back then, now I'm dealing with their offsprings. And that story they wrote that saying that Reverend Kelly's dealing with the offspring of the offsprings. So we've been around for a minute, man. And so running an after-school program, then one, working with a lot of the gangsters has been another. For 10 years, we run this program dealing with STG guys and girls. Those are guys and girls in prison or coming from prison that's been in the gangs and been classified as security threat groups. We were focusing on dealing with them for over 10 years, working with the church, Scientology that have been a partner of us, along with some of the Muslims, along with some of the Buddhists, along with other organizations that are looking to try to make a difference in this world, So we've been around for a minute.
All right. Now, as I understand it, you do a lot of work with children in classes that you teach, and you have activities that you involve kids in. But sometimes you make use of the space at the Church of Scientology in downtown Denver.
Well, you know what? I get so many attaboys and so many pats on the back, talking about you're doing such a great job and all of that, but there are those who feel like they would rather let others do it or let me do it, in opposed to them being able to do it. We had looked for example, space to meet with these guys, with the guys and girls who are from prison, who's been in the gang for so long. Now they're coming out on parole and all. And we try to look at other facilities, that would facilitate our, my needs. And man, when they see me coming through, oh, Reverend Kelly, hey, great. Okay, now I need a space. I need a place where we could all come together, all these little gangsters and all that in one. And then they look and said, "Oh, no, we can't do that. We can't do that." The library, well, other places, I won't name them, that I went to, and they praised the work, but they weren't able to or willing to open their doors to let me have a space, to deal with these guys and girls every week. And yes, this is an aggressive group, but yet we've never had an issue. And the church over on Blake, they opened up the door and said, "Hey, we got a community room where you're more welcome to use it," and we've been there for almost 10 years, at the point that we were doing it, and since the COVID happened and a lot of things happened, we paused, a lot of that services that we used to do.
It's been my experience that the Church of Scientology likes to partner with other community outreach organizations and people, and they don't seem to care if you're from a different religion or whether you're religious. They just like to share the work. But you yourself are not a Scientologist, even.
No, I tell people straight up, I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a Buddhist, I'm not a Scientologist. For me, I'm a Christian. That's who I am. But I have and I will and I continue to work with Muslim, Buddhist, Scientologists, anybody that is willing to help me make this world a better place. Not to say that I agree with whatever, even those precepts, number one, I think 18, I got to respect everybody's religious belief.
Now, when you talk about the precepts, you're talking about a book that was a booklet that was written by L. Ron Hubbard called The Way to Happiness.
Way to Happiness, right? And they've done a lot. I looked at the 21 precepts, and from starting one, which is take care of yourself, all the way to 21 is to be flourish and prosper, and on the front of the book, it says it's not about a religion, it's not about a doctrine, it's about common sense. Common sense. And I've given thousands upon thousands of these books out, and I told anybody, if you could find anything that I don't see or have not seen in here that is wrong or different or whatever, let me know. And I've been doing it for years and have not been able to find that. It's about common sense. And out of the precepts, 21, there's something applicable to everybody. Now, when I say I don't agree with everything everybody says, but everybody I feel like has some input in making this world a better place. And I look at the different religions, different beliefs that people have. And I even preached that sermon one time, why do we believe what we believe? And it was sort of interesting. And when I do go out and speak and preach at many different churches, like the suburban areas, for example, when they ask for me to come out to the suburban areas to preach or speak and all of that on a Sunday, man, I look around and some days I just do things just to mess with people, man. I sit up in there with my dark glasses on in the pulpit and I'm looking around. And then when it's time for me to get up to speak, I get up. And I'm looking around at everybody, and I said, okay, many of you may be wondering why a big black preacher is sitting up in your pulpit with sunglasses on. Then I'll be asked, why do even people wear sunglasses? And some people will say a lot of different things and all that. And then when one would come up and say, well, maybe because it's bright. I said, oh, you got one. What did you say? Is mighty white in here? They said white. No, I said bright. Well, white. I mean, the same. I look around, everybody was white. So, I try to get people out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Yeah, because sometimes
I really, really respect that.
Yeah, get them out of their comfort zone, man. And you know what? We look at the things that we could do and deal with in that is in common. I met you. I met Julie. I didn't know if y'all were Hansel and Gretel. I didn't know. We had the commonality of shooting. And that's one of the many different hats I wear as well. And, we developed a relationship over the things that we had in common, and I think, I don't know how many years it's been.
Yeah.
We've been in.
Well, you and I met at the Centennial Gun Club. Because I was going in there pretty much every day on the weekends to train with my wife. Most of the people that listen to this show know that I'm an avid shooter.
That's saying putting it mildly.
Yeah, thanks. But you are too, and I see you at the gun club every time I go in. And sometimes I see you with young people. What are you doing with those young people at the gun club?
Well, when I say I wear many different hats, and one of the things I've done, per the question that was asked earlier, I run an after-school program, dealing with kids, elementary mainly I'm focusing on right now, because I've always said that one way of killing a gang is by cutting off recruitment. And it's easier to mold and build a kid than to repair an adult. And so we focus so much on the younger kids, back in the days. So it's been my passion, to work with young kids. Many of the kids I work with over in the hood, they have access or get possession of sidearms that they have no training. They don't know. They just do drive-bys. They deal with a lot of cartilage behind it. But many of them don't take the time to go and train. And not to say that I train gangsters to shoot. No. But shooting guns, is a responsibility of the owners, and I used to be the ambassador of Centennial Gun Club when Dick and Marianne Abrams were there. And
two of my favorite people.
Oh man, great people. And, I went in when you walk into, that club, it was almost like you could feel like a good old boy club.
Yep.
And I noticed that there was not a lot of people that looked like me. I came in there, and I'm an open person. I call a spade a spade. I'm who I am. And I said, man, Dick, you got a lot of folks in here. Is it an exclusive club to just a certain group of folk and all that? And so, no, some people, again, they're in their comfort zone. They don't think about things that I see and I look at. And so I became very involved, in the club there. Became the ambassador of the facility. And the ambassador is making sure, first of all, everybody's safe, and then make sure that everybody who comes in have a great time, have a great experience. Maybe be able to do something that they've never done before. And so that has been really one of my big fortes. And as we who are avid shooters, they look at Rev, I got a lot of units. I shoot a lot of different discipline.
Well, that's one of the things everybody notices about you at the gun club is you've always got an extremely wide variety of various rifles and pistols. And some of them are, I want to call them arcane, or you don't see those every day.
Right. You see them on YouTube every now, but to be able to actually see it and shoot it and understand what it does, like I have my little Gatling gun on display over there, as illustration, but that is something that we focus a lot of times on the older folk, but then I always looked at the younger kids, that would come through there, and they are so amazed with the big people's guns.
Yeah.
But
grown up hardware.
Yeah, but they can't, don't have the capacity to shoot those big things. So I have a litany of 22s that are cool, focusing more so on the younger kids.
And anybody can shoot those.
Yeah, anybody, women who are intimidated by the big guns and all that. When I do my training, my teaching, my mentoring, I always start off, with the full-size units, but they're all calibered in 22s. So when the kids come through over at Centennial, at the time when I'm no longer the ambassador there, but yet when the kids would come, I'm always looking at not to use the term underprivileged or the under, and how fascinated they are when they see the big people are doing what they're doing. And I said, let me do something to focus on these youngsters, So every time a young kid comes through, because, for example, I got a litany of revolvers, Smith & Wesson revolvers, from 460s, and I call these my bigs. From the 460s to 480s to 5s, yeah.
I've seen you with a holster on at the gun club that's a dual holster with two huge revolvers that are super shiny stainless steel.
Yeah.
I'm not a revolver guy. Most of my listeners know I'm a 1911 guy.
Yeah.
I build them, I shoot them, I love them. But those giant revolvers that I see on your hips, what are those?
Those are 44 mags. I have a number of single action ones, like they call them cowboy guns. I pretty much it's consistent, has been the only one that on the weekend that you see with sidearms on your hip. And normally there are 44s. I got 357s.
But I've seen you with a Glock 43 on your hip, which is a very small handgun.
That's what I carry. That's my concealed carry.
Yeah.
And so that was something that is workable for me, as a conceal. So when I say I have a litany, and as you notice the 44 on my hip, those don't even classify in my bigs. They don't classify in that big. No, my bigs are my bigs.
I remember one time you had a 410, I think, that huge elephant gun.
No, there was a 458 Win Mag.
458 Win Mag.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So that's how Rhinus.
And you asked me if I wanted to shoot that, and I came out of the gun club bleeding from the eyebrow because I had my stupid face. I'm not trained with long guns.
Oh, okay.
I'm trained with ARs and pistols, and that's it, and shotguns. But I had my face too close. I didn't. I thought I was ready for the recoil on that gun, but it was like getting hit by a semi. And then the ocular component went into my eyebrow and put a cut there, and I came out bleeding from the forehead. And all the other guys at Centennial that work there were looking at me like, yeah, he must have shot the Reb's rifle. And,
man, how many people is able to shoot a 458 Win Mag? That's one of them rhinoceros elephant guns, with the big missiles, about 5-6 inches. So these are things that I use, and anything that I do, I try to create an element of conversation, when people would ask me that question, what is that? It opens up an area of conversation, said this is what it is and this is what it does. And then when it gets to the point, have you ever shot one? No. Here, come try this. And
I notice you're always really super kind to people that you don't know. And, you let people shoot your guns, and obviously you keep a close eye on them to make sure that they handle the weapon safely. You're very good at that. But I've always been amazed at the fact that anybody could walk up to the Reverend Leon Kelly and say, "Hey, can I shoot your pistol or can I shoot your rifle?" And you're like, "Fine." And if they don't know how, you teach them how, which is always
They would
impressive.
come up and say, "Can I just record it? Can I take a picture of it?" And all that. And that may be the closest that they've ever been to a unit like that. And then it's almost like a kid at a birthday party, man. You want to shoot one? Oh, and just to see the gleam, and the joy come up on, and, to have that experience.
Yeah.
But again, that is one component. That's what I do. That's what I do. And that, when I say I wear a lot of different hats, that's one thing that I do. Because when I got my pardon in 2010, it opened up all the avenues,
Now
for me.
let's talk about that a little bit. Let's move into maybe a grittier subject matter.
Well, to me, it's not a gritty. We all make mistakes, but the key is to learn from your mistakes. And the mistakes I made in the past, I felt God's way of preparing me to do the work that I've been doing for these last 40 years.
Yeah, and you know more about gangs than just a casual person.
Yeah.
Where did you grow up?
Well, I grew up here. I'm born here in Denver, Colorado, at the old Mercy Hospital years ago. But in the earlier parts of my life, my mom from Bogalusa, Louisiana, my dad from Brookhaven, Mississippi. And if you was to only imagine how it was in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s, even up here, let alone in the Deep South. And so we would always go on those road trips, during the summer, to the Mississippi and Bogalusa and all that. And we ended up, fast forward, ended up moving back down there in the 60s. And man, anybody could only imagine how, again, it was the segregation. It was very segregated. The clans were in full effect. And I used to, refer to those cities, the small towns, as, you had two elements. You had the blacks, and then you had the clans. You had the railroad. You had the signs in the window that says colored only or white only. We were Central High Spartans, which was all black school. We never could play the Bogalusa Lumberjacks, which is all white. Just living that time. I have scars on me now from that time.
Yeah.
And going through it. And coming from a place like Colorado, even back then, it was somewhat integrated, things like that. But then down there to be subjected to that as a young kid. And people hated you, not because you did anything to anybody, but just because of the color of your skin. It caused us that. And to experience that as a young kid, man, I tell you what, coming back up here, when it got to the point where they were going to integrate, and it really didn't sit well with the town and all of that, my parents chose to bring us back up here, but my father stayed down there to minister at the church. And so it was being back up here.
Now, at some point, you fell in with a bad crowd. Is that fair to say?
Well, that's coming back up. That's coming back up. When I came back here from Louisiana, from the South, man, when I came back up here, I hated white folks. I hated, because I felt like they were a contributor to killing my grandfather. Charles, one of my friends, they found him hung up, up in Vonado back in the days. And the experience being, for example, being spit on. I don't know if you've ever been spit on. It is one of the most degrading feelings that one could feel. And not because I did anything to anybody, just because of the color of my skin. And so over that period of time of being subjected to that, when I came back, I just had this thought in my mind. I just hated folks, thought that all white folks were the same. But then I get back up here, and somebody that looked like me tried to take my birthday. And then I come to realize that people are people, man. And when I use the term try to take my birthday, that means they try to kill me.
Yeah.
Somebody that looked like me. And I come to realize that people are people. There is good white folks, there's bad white folks. There's good black folks, there's bad black folks. There is good brown folks, good bad brown folks. Good folks, bad folks. And so I got to dealing with people as such. You treat me good, I treat you good type of thing. I'm a PK, preacher's kid. And my folks were very religious, very into their own. We were very sheltered, within that arena. And God had blessed me with a little bit, not talent. And I've always been the type that when we would play our little games on the street or at the Sandlot, I would always pick the underdogs to be on my team. The ones that other people didn't want to pick, this. But I would always pick them to be on my team, type. And so as I've gone through that, I guess I had that kind of personality, from my mom and my dad growing up in the ministry. And I knew this, but yet it wasn't until, I tell you, I left home and went up to school, played up at CU. And then I was exposed to the world. And if people only realized how CU was back in the early 70s, the things that you're exposed to, they put athletes on a pedestal. The things that I was protected from.
I do
at
understand
home.
that because my daughter was the captain of the CU Buffs cheerleading team. And so I
Go
learned
Buffs.
I learned a little bit about the culture of sports at CU from that.
Yeah, and how it was up there, wasn't a whole lot of blacks and minorities up there in the early 70s, no bit. But yet, it was coming to the end of the Vietnam War. It was people who were saying, like the hippies, people would hear about. Many of our kids, you use terms like hippies and all that. Many of our kids have no clue of who they were. And I can imagine, Brent, this is our generation. I could envision you back in those days with hair way down on your back.
Anybody hears that I ever had hair, they don't believe it.
Man, look at them old pictures. Old pictures. But going through that time, man, you are exposed, and even being an athlete, you're exposed to a lot of things. And keep in mind, coming from my past, I was very protected, very sheltered. And when you became exposed to those things that you may have seen on TV or heard about, and the people talking about, let's make love, not war. And everybody was in the free spirit, man. And it was a new experience. It was a new time. And when you find yourself being introduced to certain things, it's always something that you say, oh man, what else is next? What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? And then, you in the areas of sports, are you doing something that people end up putting you on a pedestal? People always want to be around you, for what you have or what you can do or what you have done, and again, if you think as to how Boulder was back in the days, with the drug introduction of the different types of drugs, the cocaine, the marijuana, all the other things that went along with it. It was an experience. It was an experience. So one thing led to another, and I gravitated, toward the high life, the life that you would only see on TV and certain groups of people only could have. I had a part of it. Even back then, we look at Woodstock, all the things that went along with the 60s and the 70s, and all. But I'm a preacher kid, never been exposed to that, But then now, here I am being bombarded with these darts, from all areas, And so again, one thing led to another, and just got into the life.
No, you say life. What do you mean?
When I got into the life, I got into the drug world, instead of just using it. And I had access, my people who were supplying it, giving out at the parties and all that, they said, hey, Kel, here. It was around so much, and so there are certain people that were not privy to that element, to that to that extent of it, and so again, it goes back to my nature back in the days, it's always here, try this, here, try this, here, try that, here. And the level or the grade of the drug that we, that had access to was a whole lot different than the grade that they had in the inner cities and other places, so.
Was it more potent?
It was more potent. It was more potent, And so I got introduced to the cocaine and how it's used, how it was cut, how it was sold, how it was all of that. But yet I was still a PK, preacher's kid. My mother and father had no clue of the dark side, the things that I entered into. After leaving the school up there, man, came down. I'm sort of fast forwarding through a lot of this because a lot of things happened, over the a short period of time. Fast forward.
But did there come a day that you were actually a member of a gang?
Back then we didn't call them gangs, we call them crews. These are my boys.
Yeah.
These are, so it was more low. No, man, it wasn't like the Crips and the Bloods and the Disciples and things, even though some of them existed back then. But my thing is within my drug world, I didn't, identify as a, with the typical gangs that we had our crews. And even within the crews, it's the same tendencies, same characteristics that the modern day gangs have, so to speak. But we were about making money. And even living in that type of lifestyle, you have to portray a certain image in order to be respected. And then when you get to the point where you sometimes don't have to get your hands dirty, you as an organization, you tell your soldiers, you tell your crew, take care of that business. I lived at Brooks Towers, 42D, the penthouse, the whole bit. I was playing semi-pro ball, here. My family I thought that because of my income was from my playing days, that I was still playing and all that. They had no clue I was dabbling into what I was dealing with. And living that life, you see a lot, Brent. You see a lot.
I imagine.
And the carnage that goes along, with the dark world or the dark side. And especially if you had a product that was in demand, that was higher in a grade that the average person over in the hood or in certain parts of the city had access to, you became the man, But again, the dark side of that, even though, all of it's dark, but yet still you deal with certain personalities that have to come with it. And you have to keep that level of respect.
Yeah.
And, if you front somebody an ounce, for example, back then, and these are things that I was exposed to that we talking about guns. I carried 3 guns back then, just because of the environment, element. Never had to, never wanted to or intended to use it, but, sort of felt that if you did, you had to be prepared, for it. In this one scenario, I'll even tell you about that in the areas that this kid owed me, and my partner, we went over to, to take care, some business. He tried to hide and everything else. Fast forward, came out, had him on the floor and talking about, where's my money? And I had a 38 special with a nickel-plated hammer handles on it and the whole bit. My partner was in my back. He knew he was wrong. He tried to jack me and the whole bit. I put that gun to his head. And as he was laying on the floor, his girl was crying, please stop, we'll pay you and all that. And again, I wasn't in my mind, wasn't going to hit him. My thing was to intimidate, And, I was talking crazy, cocked the gun, turned around and looked at my partner that was behind me, And when I turned around, the gun went pow! That quick instant, a fear came over me saying, because I knew, Brent, where I had the gun, right on the side of his temple. And I said, the gun went off. I said, felt like I shot this boy in the head. When I turned back around, that gun it was a big crease in his forehead. And he was so afraid, so petrified, peed on himself. I almost peed on myself, And I told him, man, if you don't have my gun, my money by the rest of the day, man, I'm going to come back and finish it. Man, I could be in prison for life. I could have been in there for murder. I couldn't understand.
Now, let's just get this straight. The guy lived, right?
He lived. He lived. But a big old crease in his head, And I think the crease more so was for the recoil, the flash, than anything. But I couldn't understand how that gun moved. I knew where it was. And so it was the fact that that's where my belief in my religion comes into play, that God manifested itself. He allowed that gun to move because he was preparing me for the work that I've been doing for the last 40 years. That experience and then ending up in prison Because I used to, stand on my balcony at Brooks Towers looking over the city. And I had my 3 girls, and I wasn't a pimp, but I had my 3 girls that was with me. And there was those places like Sid King's, Tipsy Tiger.
I remember Sid.
Yeah, Sid King's, Tipsy Tiger. Yeah, the Frolic. These were my girls. Danced that. I didn't allow them because of my morals and values.
That was before we had the upstanding establishment known as the Diamond Cabaret.
Yeah, that was before the Diamond. Yeah, we were talking about the Tipsy Tiger.
Yeah.
And the Sid King's. The Frolic, which was downtown. And my girls didn't sell their bodies. They didn't do none of that. Our hustle was the dope, thing,
Yeah.
But yet, I remember standing on the balcony looking over the city of Denver, and I'm saying, after being up 2-3 days, and I said, man, it have to be something more to life than this. It have to be. I know a lot of people would wish they would have what I had, type of thing, but it was still a void, a blank that was there. And
just a bad time.
Yeah, I said, man. And sometimes, they say that, if you go to the top, the only way left to go was down.
Yeah.
And then down I went, got caught up in the mix, ended up going to jail, went to prison.
How long?
Judge Gilbert Alexander, and Dale Tully was my prosecutor.
Yeah.
And they gave me a 5 to 8 year prison sentence, and which it was my first case. I'm a college degree, I'm an athlete and all of this, never been in trouble before, but yet it was just a matter of time, and tell you about that, I gave me a 5 to 8 years, and I took, while I was going through the time, the trial, before even they were going through the litigation and all that stuff, I took a plea bargain, and the plea bargain, and then everybody say always get a job and always do this, when you go for sitting in the car and all that. I took a extended lunch break from my job, to go down for sentencing, because I figured it was just gonna be they're gonna give me my time and say you're gonna have a deferred sentence, or it's gonna be put you on probation or whatever. Man, I'm standing up there. I told them I'd be back. I took an extended lunch break. I'm standing up in the courtroom. My parents were there. And keep in mind, I always tried to keep my dark side away from their belief, from their teaching. I didn't want to cause no embarrassment, no harm to come up on my folks. So they were there in the courthouse, the courtroom. Standing there, Dale Tully, was prosecutor, Judge Gilbert Alexander.
I knew Dale Tully peripherally. He had a son who
Keith Tully.
That was the younger one.
Yeah.
But he had an older son, older than Keith, named Pat.
Pat.
And Pat is he's a very prominent lawyer in Denver these days. And I spoke with him a year ago because at one time we were in the same scout troop.
Okay.
He was a patrol leader. I was a patrol leader, and we chatted and caught up. But
see, the paths that we crossed,
Yeah.
back who was to know?
I didn't know Dale very well. I just met him a few times.
Well, I didn't want to know him at the time either, but he was my prosecutor, and he was the Denver DA. And
so what happened in the sentencing?
So in the sentencing, the judge says, okay, because of this, I'm going to give you 5 to 8. 5 to 8. And I said, okay, all right. And I'm still waiting for, it's going to be deferred. It's going to be a probation. If you don't fulfill the, this and that, you're going to do 5 and 8. And I said, okay, I got to get back to work. But that didn't never come. I got to get back. 5 to 8. Okay. Then he says that, okay, you are going to jail now. It was like a bubble, a balloon, a bubble that popped. Reality set in that, wait a minute, Judge, hold up. I got to get back to work. I'm on an extended lunch break. I got to go back. Still have my place and everything else. He said, no, you're going to jail now. You're going to be remanded in the custody of the sheriff to start to serve your time now. Now, can you imagine, Brett? Here I am, PK, college graduate, playing ball, the penthouse and all that. Now I'm going to prison, not just the jail, to prison prison.
Where did they take you?
They took me to Territorial. I did the time there. And the respect I have for Dale Tully and Judge Gilbert Alexander, he took the time, and they took the time to talk to my folk. And Judge says, and along with Dale, he says that we normally don't get these kind of kids in here like this, like your son. But if we didn't hold true to what we say or felt and did, that we felt that eventually he was going to either kill somebody or be in jail for the rest of his life, or either he was going to be dead. That's what they told my mom and my dad. And I thank God after, you look back on it, that they did what they did. And all of this was still after I see, was in God's planning or preparing me for the work. So here I am going to prison, Territorial. And just the experience of life behind bars. And sort of like my reputation preceded me.
How long were you in?
Well, I did three out of that. And my life, my reputation from the streets preceded me going inside. My boys, my soldiers, they were losing their general, so to speak, here. And it taught me that, sometimes when you hear the phrase that there's little to no honor among thieves. I had asked the judge if I could have a stay in order to go and get my business, take care of my affairs, all my stuff I had. And he said, no, you're going to jail. And you would depend, I think, that your homies, your friends, and your acquaintances and all, but and they knew that the leader was gone, and it was all free picking, so to speak.
Yeah.
So going to prison, man, I had to keep up in my mind my image. And when I used that term a minute ago, that my reputation preceded me, when you know that the dope man is coming in, oh, there's Big Kel, he's coming through. People want to befriend you, because there's life that goes on behind the bars. And living and having that experience, and again, keep in mind, I was a great, pretty good ball player, man. I was scoring 45 to 50 points in the prison, on the teams up there, 45 to 50 points a game. People would say, oh, well, you in prison, man, there's a lot of skill that exists in prisons, and I had held that record for a minute, but I still have it. But just going through that experience of life, the things that I was exposed to, the things that I've seen, put me in a position of know-how, and people would ask me after a minute, after I chose to change, because
when was that? When
my mom came up to visit, her and my dad would come up to visit. And Brett, I had such high respect for my mom and dad. I never wanted to cause any harm or shame upon them. And as a kid growing up, I never, ever seen my mom cry. Never, ever. That was the least thing in my mind and my thoughts to make your mom cry. She came up, my dad was hard school. He was one of my old boy, you make your bed hard, you lay on it. I don't care how comfortable it is. He's that type, I'm a junior. So me and him were very close. So I saw my mom cry, that tear came down. And man, I'm telling you, that was one of the things that broke me. After my time of being there, I was there for a minute. Then when my mom did come and I saw that, that broke me. And then at that time I said, Mom, okay, I'm raised in this religion. I'm raised in this faith.
And you are a Maranatha Christian.
I'm a Pentecostal Christian. I am one of them. My church was Maranatha Church of God in Christ.
Got it.
And so it was Pentecostal, coming my dad and my mom, there was that fire and brimstone, the religion of old. If you don't walk like this, you don't talk like this, don't look like this, you're going to hell. You're going to burn in a lake of fire, type. So we were more afraid of going to hell, than anything else, being saved. But going through that, that's when I said, Mom, I'm sorry, I want to change. And she said, boy, just like you looking at me and talking to me, that's the way you talk to God. And you be sincere, you be true. Man, Brent, I went back to my cell and I said, this is it. I prayed, I repented, And I said, I'm done. I'm done. And it was just sort of like something just lifted off of me, man. You know, the stash I had, the things that I had, you know, because in prison is a life. There's things that still happen in prison, you know, and I was very successful, use the term successful, in prison, you know, as well. But I was done. And the thing that broke me was my mom, you know, and then I got to thinking, you're locked up. And if you get a call to the chaplain's office or the control center, Kelly, 45474, come to the control center, come to this. And to go to the chaplain's office, and the chaplain said that we had some bad news. Your mom, your dad, your siblings was on life support. And they called your name, and you couldn't get to them. That was a torment to me, you know, and I said, okay, I'm done. And even once I made the decision to change, man, you know what I mean? You look at the change of so many of those people that was around me, you know, stop smoking cigarettes, stop doing things, stop, you know, because we talking about precept number 6, set a good example. People, I say that we all have influence on somebody to whatever degree. And those who, again, on my bad side, I had to think as to those who met me when I was on the streets and all that. I had to think later that maybe if many of them never had met me.
So the minute you made the decision to start a new life, you started
in prison,
setting a better example.
In prison.
And you started affecting people right that minute.
Right then, who knew me, you know, because I ran the store inside the joint. You know, I sold things inside the joints and all that. And then once as I said, I'm done. I was done. And people saw me, you know, and they said, okay. And, you know, that's what I said about, you know, our faith and our belief and all that. When people come and ask you, how did you do it? How did you change? You know, people in the joint, you know, these, we look at the ones that end up going back, you know, over and over and over. You know, when those who said, how did you do it, Rev? How did you do it? My mom and dad used to tell me about you back in the streets. Others who I spent time with. You know, now my number was 45474. That was the old 70 number. You know, and when they asked that question, how did you do it? You know, and even right now.
And what do you say when they
You know, my thing is, you know, first of all, you have to have a foundation. For me, you know, in order to deal with anything, I have to have a foundation. And for me, my foundation was my faith, my belief. You know, my God was my foundation. I got into, you know, the study. You know, if I was going to be a Christian, I have to understand, what is that? What is a Christian? Where do they come from? How do they do this? You know, so I got into that. And I tell you, Ben, if I would have left that courtroom, most likely I wouldn't be sitting here right now. If I didn't go through what I went through in the prison, you know, system, having that experience in that, you know, and didn't really want to change I wouldn't be sitting here now, you know. So as I said earlier, you know, when people would ask you, how did you do it?
And that's why you have respect for Tully and Alexander.
Yeah, man, I asked for audience with Judge Gilbert Alexander when I came back, you know, and he granted me a time to come and speak with him, you know, and I came back and I said, Judge, I just want to say thank you, because if you didn't hold true to what you did, I wouldn't be here. I just want to thank you. So when he passed away, I was at his service and all, it really hurt me, you know, and all that. But yet, because he stood firm, him and Dale Tully stood firm on what they did, because they said they saw something in me. They saw something in this young man, you know, that I didn't see at the time, you know. And some of those things that they say and told to me, these are things that I say to my parolees and to my guys and girls at the halfway houses now. Because one of my, people call it my uniqueness, is the fact that I went through all of what many of these guys and girls are going through the prison system. I went through the whole gamut of the system. So I've been there. I know what it means, what it is. And so somebody can tell me, oh, Rev, you ain't been there. You don't know this. No, don't get it twisted. Yeah, I've been there. I was there. You know, and so that gives them hope. That gives them promise. That gives them somebody to look up to in a positive vein of saying, man, he's been there, he's done that. And then so we talk about the foundation, whatever it is, and I understand. Like Precept 18 says, we got to respect the, belief of others. Everybody's not going to believe the way I believe, not the way you believe, Brent. But yet, all I could do was tell them how I did it.
Yeah.
And you have to have a foundation that is going to be firm and steady and strong enough to build on. Because if you try to build on a foundation that is weak, the more weight life's going to put up on you. That foundation is going to eventually crumble. And that'll been the cause here. And sometimes people I notice, have just been afraid of change. I got some of my gangsters, man. I've had them when they were in elementary schools. They're in their 50s now. Walking around with the pants halfway down and talking about cuz, blood, and all of that. I said, man, look here, you's a granddaddy. You still doing this. But in his hood, in his level, he's considered as a OG, a triple OG. He has status. He has, image. But then if he was to be regular Tom, Dick, Harry, John, who would he be? How would he adapt? How would he exist? He's been, idolized for so long, and it's almost like a drug, for him. So these are things that I use to try to give encouragement to other people who are at that crossroad maybe in their life.
I'm with you. Yeah. So when you got out of prison and that day finally came that you were released, what'd you do then?
Oh, man, Brett. My triumph came because I knew I had some stash left to get back up on my feet once I got out. But within that time of being in prison, I really got into the element of study, to be able to understand when it says, greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. What did that mean? What kind of power do I have? Who am I? Instead of just saying blatantly, I'm a Christian, I'm a child of God. What does that mean? I believe in God. Huh? What does that mean? But my test, and I often say that a lot of people could work well as long as there's hedges around them. But once that hedge is down and you're out into the real world and all of us, that's where the test's going to come. So I went back and I always knew I had some stash left to get back up on my feet. Man, and my parents and folks in my family didn't even know I was being released. To me, I didn't care. It didn't matter. I said, God, within your time, when you feel like I'm strong enough I'm going to get out of here. So after I visited with my parents and all that, man, I remember like it was yesterday, I went and got my stash and I held it in my hand. And these were rocks. These were cocaine. There's some that wasn't even cut yet, enough to get back on my feet, and all. Man, the longer I held that in my hand, the weaker I felt myself becoming. Because I got to reminiscing about the times, the good times, the fast lane and all that. And then at that point, I opened my bag, I spread it on the ground, and I didn't just let it sit there because I said, what did I do? Start putting the rocks back. No, I spread it on the ground with my feet. And I said, Satan, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. I cast you out. You have no dominion over it. I'm free. I'm done. That was my victory. That was for me. That was my victory. That was my victory.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was my victory. And ever since, man, I've been going, I've been studying, I've been learning, and at the end of the day, I come to realize all those things that I've been exposed to in my life of bringing up was God preparing me for the work that I've been doing for these last 40 years.
And you have spoken all over the country. Isn't that true?
Yeah, to be an example to others. And even Tully. Now, when they had Tully Hall, was a facility, halfway house. I was one of the persons that caseworkers going in a Tully Hall, dealing with the people at the halfway house. And his big picture is right there. And as years went on, man, Brent, they honored me with the Dale Tully Award.
Awesome.
Dale Tully Award. And I made mention of Keith, that's like my brother, man. He had become a chairman of my board for over 10 years. and we've done a lot of things, a lot of work together, to try to make a difference in this city, not just in this city, but, around this country.
I'm with you.
So that gave you a little bit. It's more than man, Britt, I have a problem with my trigger, on my Glock. On my 911, man. It's more, a little different.
You and I were talking, and you had a 1911, and I didn't see you very often with a 1911, and you didn't like the trigger on it. When I started messing with it, I didn't.
Well, that's after I shot yours.
Yeah.
Man, I said, oh, man.
You're shooting a Godfrey Custom, and then suddenly you're shooting a Remington. So I fixed that. I remember, and you're like, wow, this is like a new gun.
Yeah, new. It was one of my Smith & Wesson Pro Series, 45.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
and
right.
45, man.
It was a Smith.
And after shooting yours, I said, man, it's almost, again, night and day, so to speak. But if you didn't know any better, if you didn't know any, you just think that what you have is what you have, and all. And that's why it's, even used everything I have experienced in my past. I put it in a way that I could use going forward. I use it as an illustration, even as I teach others, about guns and, ownerships and things that if you don't know, you don't know. You might go out and get a High Point, brand new in a brand new box, and you only paid $110 for it. Man,
yeah,
you think that's what you got. That's, man, over in the hood, you got this compared to
you hold the gun sideways.
Oh, man. And we've had people come in, never had. So, that's why I said we could often use our experiences.
It's hard to aim when you have the gun sideways.
It works on TV.
Yeah, at a distance of 2 feet. Yeah.
Man, yeah. And so these are things that when I used the term earlier that I wear a lot of different hats. And as I reflect back on my life as to getting guys and girls to understand, they have a purpose, but you need to find your purpose. What is your work? What is your calling?
Now, you talked earlier about recruitment, that's the best way to attack the gang problem is attack the recruitment stage, maybe by giving the potential little recruitees other options in life, things they could do instead. You can go shoot guns and be cool, but you don't have to be in a gang to do that.
No.
And so what is the and I think a lot of our listeners will find this question interesting. What is the process? How does a gang recruit?
We look at recruitment, how they do. For example, like my after-school program, or the kids that I work with, from the street, I would venture to say about 80% of them have little to no positive, consistent relationship with a positive male in their life. So many of them are trying to fill the voids, in their own way. They grow up in certain neighborhoods and certain environments that the father's not around. A lot of them are in prison, are dead, are just out on the streets, drugged out. So many of these kids are trying to figure out, as far as the male child, as to who am I? Who am I? And so they yoke together. And my attitude now is a whole lot different than what it was 20, 30 years ago. I used to be sympathetic and understanding, that. But, when they say I came from this neighborhood, that's why I'm in the gang. Everybody in my neighborhood is in the gang. Looked at it and I couldn't realize, no, it's not. We wrote that story a few years ago called The Story of Two Mikes. Mike Asbury, who was the founding leader of the Rolling 30 Crip gang here. It started in '84. And then there's Michael Hancock, who we all know is the mayor of our city. Both of these kids were under my umbrella. When I was over at the Red Shield Center, they used to come to my center, play ball and this and that. Mike had that ability, athletic ability, because he was a leader in his own game, in his own right. Mike Hancock was still from the hood, same environment, same background, same temptations, same pressures. But yet he tried to play ball. The ball hit him all in the head and everything else, And then he wasn't a ball player, but he was in the debate club and he was dinner. But he was at the center. He was with us. So we wrote that story, The Story of Two Mikes. From the same neighborhood, same background, same temptation, same pressures. Then I come to realize it's about choice. We buried Michael Asbury. I spent more time with him because I didn't have to worry about him, where if he was going to leave and not come back. Mike Hancock, I figured that he was in a different environment, different group, even though we're from the same environment, same neighborhood, but yet he chose to stay with the nerdy guys and people, and didn't have to worry about it.
Guys like me.
Brent, some of the nerdy guys, you never know their background. They be the one that be hitting you. So we wrote that. We buried, unfortunately, Mike Asbury in 2008. That was tough. I had become sort of like his surrogate dad, in which for the multitude of kids in the hood, I've become the surrogate dad to the many. The consistent, positive male role model in their life. And as Paul and the Chief and others would say that, Rev, if you hadn't done what you've done over these decades, our problem could have been much worse, much worse, much worse. So I feel this has been my ministry, been my work, been my purpose. And people have often talked about writing my memoirs or writing my history and all of that. If it is something that could be written, and I see the many talents, man, you have. Man, I look at your books, man. I mean, look, like I said, I knew you from the club and from our relationship. Has been what it is. To me, to say you got all of this, to me, it doesn't matter. I look at you as a person. I look at my girl, Julie, as who she is.
That's my wife, yeah.
Well, see, I'm from...
the listeners may not remember that my wife is named Julie.
Well, see, yeah, that's Julie, man. But I see you as Brent. I see her as Julie. We get the love, we get hugs and all of that. We talk about what we talk. And coming all the way out here, I thought you had no clue. You were all involved in what you're doing. You paint. You write, you shoot, you deal with people, and you orchestrate. All of this. We see Jeremiah over there. You getting people around you, man, that is helping you deal with life in a better sense, And so when I say we all have our gifts, all our work, I guess she's your receptionist, secretary.
The lady you meet when you come in.
Yeah, well, the seasoned, I call her the seasoned lady I met in the back.
The seasoned lady. Oh, my God. I'm going to have to make the whole law firm listen to this. The seasoned lady.
Yeah, the seasoned lady. I forgot what's her name.
Her name is Connie Higgs.
Connie.
She's been with me for a quarter of a century.
See, the zucchini or the pickle lady.
Well, she grows cucumbers.
Well, they all the same. They green and man.
Yeah.
She said that's not my, man. She has that green thumb. I guess I could if I tried it, plant a zucchini or pickle or something, man. But I know I enjoy them at the end of the day. That's her gift. Yeah. So we all,
Well, I'll tell you a thing, Leon. She is a phenomenal pianist. She has a piano at home, and she is getting a little older now. But for most of the decades that she's worked here, she would go home at the end of a day and sit down at the piano and play for an hour.
See, some people find therapeutic things to do. Like she does the piano. I find shooting very therapeutic.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, man. You would be surprised how many folks, when Dick and Mary was there, when I was the ambassador over Centennial, would come and ask me for prayer. If I could some of them just need a talk.
Well, it's something you give off. It's sort of an aura that you have that says this is a man whose heart is pure, who is trustworthy, who has answers, who's been through a lot in life, isn't going to judge me. That's the you just give that off, and if somebody's known you for 1 minute, they will feel that.
Yeah. See, and that's people who've been real. When I talk about the ambassador, I am now the ambassador over at this new gun club I'm at called Shoot Indoors. It's off of 225 in Mississippi. And we've been there over a year. And being an ambassador, it is my, what I try to do is to make people comfortable. Because, man, I don't care how much you obtain in life. If your spirit is not right, if your emotion's not right, if your mental status is not right, it doesn't matter. And I've met people who have millions and millions of dollars, but yet they're dealing with sufferings of life. People who've been around, man, and I've dealt with so many people who have nothing. And when my guys and girls come in and complaining, about this, about that, man, I said, man, look here, I'm not good with excuses. I don't want to hear it. And I often said that in order to put certain things in perspective, you have to have something to compare it with. And when you go to Craig Hospital, you go to Spalding, you see these guys and girls, man, full but they have eyes and can't see, ears and can't hear, mouths and can't utter a word, feet and can't take a walk, step. And then here we are, want to complain about, oh, I got to get up, oh, I got to go to work, oh, I got to do this.
That sounds like me.
No. Man, but hey, if I tell a lot of my guys, in Proverbs, it's talking about poor people don't like poor people. And, I said, that's what King Solomon, he said, I said, if you ask any of my guys in the halfway house now that I deal with them every week, I said, I'm the type that if I eat, my people eat. If you don't work, you don't eat. My thing, if you up under my umbrella, if I'm working, you working, and so those are things that I try to give off, to folks, and so when I use the term I shoot, and I encourage people, to go where they go, but if anybody want to shoot, that's why I am. On Fridays at 4:00, is Shoot with the Rev. Over at Shooting Doors, for 4:00. And the people say, well, I don't get off work till 5. No, we're there up until about 7:30. And that is the time that on these Fridays, we shoot a lot of different units. I even shot my 50 cal Beretta over there. And matter of fact, this Saturday.
I don't want to shoot your 50
cal.
cal.
Man, I was going to see what you and Julie were doing Saturday, because we're going to go be shooting big guns way out past Greeley this weekend, this Saturday.
We're getting ready to go to Gunsight for a custom class with a guy named Charlie McNeese. And we've got some range time booked because we're going to try to get tuned up for our class.
Okay.
It's a private, and we're bringing a bunch of people from this law firm to train with Charlie McNeese, who, in my opinion, is the best pistol instructor on the planet. Mm. And
but, again, we all have our gifts. The knowledge that you and even Julie, man, she is one that not to be messed with.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever seen a woman in your life that can shoot as well as Julie?
Man, well, I've seen them on YouTube and all these other folks here, man. But that girl,
like Mandy Bachman and
man, you look at certain people, you would have no clue. You look at Julie, you would have no clue she's a shooter. You look at you wouldn't have no clue. Sometimes you just don't, when I use that term earlier, sometimes you can't judge the book by the cover.
I look like a mild-mannered, nerdy person.
You do. You look like an use the term old professor. One that is able to sit back and do lectures and, tell people, talk about nucleuses and other things flying around the atoms and things of that sort, man. But
I am kind of a fan of subatomic physics. And,
you see, some people can't even say that word. That's who you are.
I read about it every day. It's a passion of mine.
But to me, that's why I said it doesn't mean nothing to me. I deal with you as a person, as a man. And when I often tell a lot of, and don't sit sometimes well with my wife, saying that I am one of those ones that would put myself in a compromising position for anybody. And even in the hood.
And I know that.
Yeah, and that's what I would do.
Yeah.
If Jeremiah get to crying over there, man, I said, man, look, you crying. What you crying for? Oh, my girlfriend left me. Oh, boy, get up.
Well, let me stop you for a minute. Jay is signaling frantically that we're way over time on this.
Man, well, you see how we can do this? We could go on and on and on.
We go all day like we often do at the club.
Yeah. And there's still a whole lot. That was just a snapshot.
Yeah.
All right. And so now that you're hanging out here, again, my thing when I said that being out there in this area, it's something I can't say that I just happened to be out in the neighborhood and I stopped by and saw you, Brett. No. I had to GPS you.
We're way out here.
Ooh, you out, man. So, yeah, if the opportunity presents itself again, for me to come out and have a conversation, we have a little more time, I'd be more than willing to do that.
Love to have you back on the show. And hopefully that'll happen before too terribly long.
Yeah, let me know. We can do it.
But Reverend, I would like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on the show today. And we are out of time, but it's been a real pleasure and a real treat. And I'm sure our listeners feel the same way.
All right. Well, if anybody want to get in contact with me,
how do they do that, Rev?
They could call 303-893-GANG or 303-893-4264, or they could even just email me, the Rev 1953 at AOL.com. The Rev, THEREV 1953 at AOL.com.
All right. Thank you so much for
God
that.
bless, Britt. Man, good luck on your venture this weekend and going out. And if any of you guys or anybody want to shoot some different type of units that they would only see on YouTube, man, all they got to do is holler at me.
Well, I have a couple of guys here that would like to do that.
Okay.
You've met two of them, but at the club. But anyway, I'm Brett Godfrey. This has been ViewPoint. Thanks for listening.